The air inside the set was heavy enough to choke on, a suffocating mix of perfume, hairspray, and silent anticipation. Hours earlier, this same room had been alive with laughter, casual shade, and playful banter. Now it felt like a trap waiting to snap shut. Spice sat across from Bambi, the faintest curl of a smirk teasing the corner of her lips. It wasn't the kind of smile you give out of kindness. It was the smile of someone who knew the blade was already in position, and all that was left was to twist it. Her eyes glimmered with quiet satisfaction, as though she could already see the destruction she was about to unleash, and the rest of the room seemed to feel it too. Conversations stalled. Even the production crew shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing that something irreversible was about to happen. Bambi, oblivious to the undertow, lounged with calculated calm, legs crossed, one hand lazily resting on her drink. She had the posture of a woman convinced her past was buried deep, enough that no one would ever dig it up. She thought she was untouchable. She thought the ugly parts of her truth would never crawl into the light, not for Scrappy, not for the cast, not for anyone. But Spice had been waiting for this day like it was her coronation. The faint vibration of a phone broke the silence, a small sound that carried like thunder in the tense quiet. Spice glanced down at her screen, her eyes lighting up as though she had just received confirmation from fate itself. The smile spread wider, slower, until it was no longer a smile at all but a warning. She rose from her seat with deliberate grace, and the air in the room shifted. No one dared breathe too loudly, afraid they might disrupt the ritual about to unfold. Every step she took toward the center of the room felt measured, like she was drawing the cast into a spell. In her hand, her phone became less a device and more a weapon, cold, metallic, and sharp enough to cut. Bambi's brow furrowed, her head tilting slightly as if to say, "What is this?" But before she could form the question, Spice pressed play. The room was swallowed by the sound of a video clip, the kind of audio that makes people lean forward without realizing it. The big screen lit up with the shaky, intimate framing of a FaceTime call. The setting was unmistakable. A nail salon. There was Bambi framed in flattering light, laughing with the easy comfort of someone speaking to more than just a friend. And there, shirtless with his back half turned to the camera, was Spice's ex. His voice was playful, his tone drenched in familiarity, the kind you don't reserve for strangers. The two of them spoke in the rhythm of people who knew exactly what they were doing. No business talk, no polite exchanges, just pure, unfiltered flirtation. The kind that rotted the foundation of trust the moment it was seen. Bambi's face drained of color, the glossy shield she always wore cracking instantly. Her lips parted, but no words came at first. Then, in a voice trying too hard to sound casual, she stammered, "That's not what it looks like." "Oh, but it is," Spice replied, her tone calm enough to slice skin. She turned her gaze to the rest of the cast, letting the moment breathe just long enough for every set of eyes to burn into Bambi. "This," she said, gesturing toward the screen, "is the woman you all rushed to defend. This is who she really is." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the group like a chain reaction. Some sat frozen, others leaned toward each other, whispering like school kids trading forbidden secrets. But it was Scrappy's reaction that shifted the earth under everyone's feet. He rose slowly, like he wasn't sure his legs would hold him, his eyes locked on the betrayal unfolding inches from his face. His chest heaved, and when he spoke, the words were almost too quiet to catch. "I can't believe you," he said, but the weight in his voice made the room feel colder. Spice, still planted in the center like a queen watching her rival's crown tumble to the floor, didn't need to raise her voice. She'd already won the room. Bambi, unraveling faster than she could hide it, tried to claw back ground with the kind of rage that's more about hiding shame than landing blows. "You've always been jealous of me," she spat, gripping her drink like it might anchor her in place. Spice arched an eyebrow, the faintest laugh in her throat. "Jealous? Of a FaceTime affair?" The words hit like glass shattering against tile. Even as the cast shifted in their seats, unsure whether to keep watching or look away, Spice wasn't done. "You think this is bad?" she said, her voice dropping low enough to draw everyone in. "Wait until I drop part 2. That was when the air seemed to thin out entirely. everyone believed her. No one thought this was an empty threat. Bambi, drowning in the realization that her perfect image had been ripped apart on camera, tried to patch herself together. The tears were coming faster now, and her protests sounded like echoes in a tunnel. No one cared to walk through. "You don't know the full story," she shouted, looking around desperately for a single sympathetic face. Her eyes landed on Scrappy, still by the door, his shoulders heavy with disbelief. "You think I wanted to hurt you?" she said, but her words rang hollow. Scrappy didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence was the loudest thing in the room. When he finally spoke again, his voice was stripped bare, all the bluster gone. "I thought we had something real. I thought you were my ride, or die." His tone wasn't angry anymore. It was tired. The kind of tired that comes from watching the person you love become the reason you can't sleep at night. Bambi tried to step toward him, but her feet felt like they were carrying her into quicksand. It was one time. It didn't mean anything. That was the wrong thing to say. Scrappy's laugh was bitter, sharp enough to cut the moment in half. "You think this is nothing? You think trust can survive this?" From the side of the room, Mama D, who had been still and silent until now, rose like she'd been waiting for her cue. Her voice cracked like a whip. "Enough." She walked forward, her eyes locked on Bambi. "You think you can play my son like a fool and walk away with your head high? No, you've been warned about this family and you ignored it." The heat in her words was undeniable, but her delivery was icy enough to make Bambi's skin prickle. "You've made him a fool in front of the world, and I will not let you. Walk away from that without paying the price." Bambi opened her mouth to argue, but Mama D held up a hand, silencing her with nothing more than the force of her presence. "It's over. You're done." With that, she turned on her heel and left, the sound of her heels on the floor like a closing gavel. Bambi stood frozen in place, the walls closing in as if the whole set had turned against her. Outside, the world was already eating this alive. Leaked clips, hashtags, slow-motion replays of the FaceTime call, they were spreading faster than she could catch them. And the worst part? Everyone knew Spice still had more. The room didn't just witness the first crack in Bambi's image. They knew they'd just seen the beginning of her public collapse, and there would be no coming back from this. The hallway outside the set felt like a different world from the chaos inside, but it wasn't any quieter. Scrappy leaned forward against the wall, his head hanging low, the weight of what he'd just seen pressing down on him like a stack of bricks. He wasn't just replaying the video in his mind. He was replaying years. Every late-night argument where Bambi swore he was imagining things. Every time she grabbed his phone to check his messages but bristled when he asked to see hers. Every half-hearted "I love you" that now felt like a stall tactic to keep him from looking too closely. He could hear the faint thrum of voices from inside the set. The kind of muffled buzz that comes when people are talking about you but pretending they're not. Out here, away from the cameras, it should have been easier to breathe, but it wasn't. The air was just as thick, only now it was heavy with the weight of decisions he wasn't ready to make. Inside, Bambi stood in the middle of the room like the last statue in a field that had already been burned down. She smoothed the front of her dress with shaky hands, trying to piece herself back together in front of people who had just watched her be dismantled in real time. Every few seconds, she'd glance toward Spice as if hoping to find a hint of mercy there, but Spice was unmovable. She didn't have to say anything now. The power was already hers. She sat back with one arm draped over the chair, her drink resting in the other hand, like a queen observing her rival from the safety of a throne. The smirk she wore wasn't loud, but it was dangerous. It said everything without saying a word. "I told you this day was coming. Coming." "You think this is cute?" Bambi snapped finally, breaking the silence like a glass hitting tile. "You think you won something today?" She tried to inject venom into her voice, but the tremor gave her away. Spice tilted her head and let the question hang for a moment, studying Bambi the way a cat studies a trapped mouse. "I didn't win anything," she said, her voice low, measured, every syllable deliberate. "You just lost everything. There's a difference." A few cast members muttered under their breath, and the sound stung more than she expected. That wasn't just gossip. It was the kind of commentary that meant people had already chosen sides, and none of them were hers. A producer in the corner lowered his headset to whisper something to another crew member, and Bambi's stomach dropped. She knew that look. It was the "we're getting gold" look. This wasn't going to be swept under the rug. This wasn't going to be edited into a misunderstanding. No, they were going to use every second of it. Every tear, every stammer, every failed excuse. She could already see the promos in her head, the clickbait headlines, the hashtags flooding the internet before she even got home. Bambi exposed. FaceTime gate. Receipts don't lie. And worse, she could feel the temperature shift in the people she used to call friends. Carly Red wasn't even pretending to hide her amusement anymore, scrolling through her phone with a smile that she didn't bother to mask. Erica Mena leaned back with her arms crossed, her smirk wide, watching like a front-row guest at a funeral. In the hallway, Mama D was standing beside Scrappy, her voice quieter now but no less firm. "Son, you go back in there right now, you're giving her a stage," she warned. "She's gonna use your presence like a shield. You sit next to her and you've told the whole room she still owns you. Don't give her that. Not after what you just saw." Scrappy didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on some invisible point ahead of him, his mind trapped in the kind of loop where every moment of trust you ever gave someone gets replayed like a cruel highlight reel. He remembered the first time he introduced Bambi to his family, how Mama D had pulled him aside and said, "I don't know about this one, baby." He'd brushed it off, called it paranoia. Now it sounded like prophecy. Back inside, Bambi was cornered in a conversation she couldn't control. "You all think you know the story?" She fired back, her voice louder now, aimed at everyone, and no one. "You think this is just about some stupid FaceTime call? You have no idea what's really going on." Spice lifted her chin, her voice smooth like silk but laced with steel. "Then tell us. Since you've got the floor, tell us the part we don't know." The dare was out there, hanging between them like a live wire. Bambi's eyes darted from Spice to the cameras, to the faces of people who were just waiting to pounce on whatever she said next. She could unload. There were things she knew that could shake this whole room, but each secret she considered spilling came with a risk she couldn't afford. Receipts went both ways, and some of them weren't in her favor. The cameraman zoomed in on the slight twitch at the corner of her mouth, the way her jaw tightened as she swallowed down whatever she wanted to say. She glanced toward Carly, maybe hoping for a nod of support, but Carly just shook her head with a slow, exaggerated motion, mouthing the words, "It's over." That was when it sank in. Not only was the damage done, but no one in that room was going to help her clean it up. Bambi drew in a long breath, squaring her shoulders. "Believe what you want," she said, her voice calmer now, but laced with resignation. "I'm not going to sit here and beg people who already made up their minds." She turned to leave, but Spice's voice stopped her in her tracks. "Don't go too far," she said with a casual sip of her drink. "Part 2's dropping sooner than you think." The words landed like a slap and the room buzzed with fresh murmurs. Bambi's pulse spiked. She wasn't just dealing with the fallout from what had been shown. Now there was the threat of more, the fear of what else could come to light. She pushed through the doorway, stepping into the hallway only to find Scrappy at the far end, leaning against the wall, looking at her with eyes that didn't recognize her anymore. There was no heat there, no softness either, just emptiness. And somehow, that was worse than hate. It meant he was already gone in ways she couldn't reverse. She took a tentative step toward him, her lips parting to speak, but Mama D slid in between them like a door slamming shut. "Not now," she said, her voice low and steady, the kind of voice that could cut deeper than yelling ever would. "You've done enough for one day." Bambi froze in place as both of them turned away from her, walking down the hallway together, the echo of their footsteps hitting like the final nails in the coffin. The building hummed like a beehive that had just been kicked. In the green room, Bambi stood over the sink, splashing cold water on her face, trying to cool a fire that wasn't on her skin. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Group chats lighting up, old numbers reappearing like ghosts. Brand managers typing careful phrases about alignment and next steps. A notification slid across the top that made her grip the counter. A gossip page had posted the FaceTime clip with a slow-mo filter and captions that did her no favors. The comments were brutal, the kind that don't argue facts, just drag soul. She tried to steady her breath while the mirror refused to lie. She looked like a woman who had been hit by a storm she pretended didn't exist. She wiped her face, fixed her lashes, and whispered to herself that she'd fought worse. It wasn't true, but it was the only sentence that let her stand up straight. Down the corridor, Spice watched everything unfold with that calm that makes people nervous. She wasn't gloating, she was methodical. She scrolled, saved, screenshotted, archived. A producer slipped her a look that said the network had locked the footage. No last-minute technical difficulties, no edits to soften the blow. This one was going out raw. Carly Red peered over a stylist's shoulder at the Shade Room post and cackled under her breath, while Erica Mina whispered, "It's the way the audio caught the giggle for me." Yandy shook her head, not smiling, not celebrating, just disappointed in how quickly private pain turns into a group sport. In another corner, Legal whispered to production about clearances and standard letters. Nobody said it out loud, but the machine had already started to move. Whatever happened tonight would be scheduled, packaged, and shipped by morning. Outside the studio doors, Scrappy sat on a flight case with Mama D beside him like a bodyguard and a pastor at once. "You've got two choices," she said, steady and low. "You can go quiet and let them write your ending, or you can say one true sentence and make that the headline." He rubbed his palms together like he was trying to erase fingerprints. Somewhere inside him, a younger version of himself was still bargaining. Maybe it was edited weird. Maybe there was context. Maybe love could survive if you ignore enough proof. But the clip didn't lie, and neither did the way Bambi looked. At that screen like it finally told the truth she'd been dodging. He nodded once, stood, and told a nearby producer he would do a confessional, not to attack, not to rant, just to draw a line. The confessional room was colder than anywhere else, harsh lights exposing any story you tried to hide. Scrappy sat down, exhaled, and stared at the lens like it was a person. "You ever love somebody so hard you stop loving yourself to keep it together?" he asked, voice even, hands still. "That's me. I ain't perfect, but I ain't blind no more." He paused long enough for the sentence to bite. "I'm stepping back. From the marriage, from the mess, from the lie." He didn't raise his voice or point fingers. He just told the camera the truth in a tone that sounded like a door locking from the inside. The producer didn't cut. They knew they had the clip that would play 1,000 times before sunrise. Across the hall, Bambi opened her notes app and started drafting a statement. It wasn't an apology. She wasn't ready to bleed for public sport. It was control. Context matters sat at the top of the draft like a shield. Edited narrative. Old footage. Private moment taken out of proportion. The phrases lined up, trying to feel like facts. She deleted half, retyped, softened the edges. A PR friend finally called back and told her to hold the post for an hour and send a cease and desist to 2 pages that had uploaded the video without blurring. She nodded like she was the one in charge of the rain. Then another text hit. "If Spice drops part 2, none of this matters." Her fingers went cold. Part 2 was the weak seam she prayed no one would pull. If that thread came loose, it wouldn't just be a scandal. It would be a collapse. In the main lounge, cast confessionals stacked like dominoes. Carly leaned in first, practiced and petty. "I don't defend FaceTime flirting with somebody's ex. That's not oops. That's a choice." Erica followed, eyes glossy but voice sharp. "We've all made mistakes. But when you build your brand on being solid, and the receipts say otherwise, that's not a storyline. That's a wake-up call." Yandy's turn was quieter. "The internet will eat anyone you hand it. I just hope we remember there's a family under all this." Production would cut them together like a choir, one messy, one gassed, one moral, so the audience could pick a choir leader and clap on beat. Security walked the hall with new instructions to keep sides separate. Legal sent a careful email. "Due to escalating tensions, please route all communications through counsel." A sponsor replied to production with monitoring developments, which is corporate for we can still leave. Spice tucked her phone into her bag and told a PA she was ready to go. Then she stopped, turned back to the producer, and asked for a single confessional. "On camera, please." The room reset. She sat, adjusted a curl, and met the lens like it owed her money. "People love to call it messy when a woman shows her work," she said evenly. "So let me be neat. If you're going to build your life on lies, don't use my name as a brick. If they want the rest, they can wait. I'm not done." The last 3 words were steady enough to rattle the lighting rig. By the time Bambi stepped outside for air, the night had turned the parking lot into a mirror. Sirens whined somewhere far off, just the city breathing loud, but it felt like a soundtrack. She walked to the edge of the curb, eyes on the ground, and almost didn't hear Scrappy approach. He didn't come close, didn't posture. He just stood within earshot and said, "Take care of yourself." It wasn't barbed or soft. It was final. She turned, mouth open with 1,000 things that weren't ready, and watched him walk toward Mama D without looking back. For a second, Bambi felt anger return. Hot, familiar, easier to carry than fear. She grabbed her phone and hit record on a voice memo, practicing a cleaner version of herself. "I'm not the villain. There's history, there's context, there are things you don't know." She listened back. It sounded like a trailer for a documentary that didn't exist yet. Midnight cracked open the internet. Reaction videos sprang. Up in stacks, outrage threads braided with jokes, old clips resurfacing like dots begging to be connected. A fan page posted side-by-sides of Bambi's past interviews about loyalty with tonight's footage, and the algorithm did the rest. Mama D went live for 3 minutes, short and surgical. "We protect ours. We do not protect lies." She ended. The stream before questions could turn it into a circus. Scrappy posted a black screen with a single line, "Choosing peace." Likes flooded in from people who had been waiting for that sentence for years. Bambi's draft statement hovered unsent, blinking cursor daring her to pick a version of the truth and live inside it. At 12:37 a.m., a new notification cut through the noise. Spice had posted a 12-second teaser. No faces, no names, just a timestamp. A muted room tone, and the faintest outline of a figure stepping into frame. The caption was 1 word and a clock emoji. Soon. No one needed more. Blogs screenshot the teaser, fans slowed it to frames, conspiracies sprouted in minutes. Brands slid from monitoring developments to pausing deliverables until further notice. The network sent a midnight email blast. Supersized episode next week, unseen footage included. The war wasn't just personal anymore. It was programmed. Back in the dark of the dressing room, Bambi stared at the teaser until the screen dimmed. She could beg. She could threaten. She could call Spice and ask for mercy that would never come. Instead, she opened a new note and wrote 3 sentences, each shorter than the last. "I messed up. I'm going to tell my story, not tonight." She saved it, turned off the phone, and let the silence swallow the last of her excuses. Out in the hallway, a vacuum whirred as a PA cleaned glitter out of the carpet. Tiny stars caught in the fibers from earlier. Proof that the day had started as a show and ended as a verdict. The building emptied in layers. Yandy hugged a stylist and whispered, "Pray for everybody." Carly laughed with a cameraman on the way to the parking lot. Erica slid into a car without looking back. Spice walked out alone, head high, the night air moving around her like it knew who'd set the tempo. She didn't need to say another word. She had the room. She had the story. And if necessary, she had part 2. Somewhere between the door and the curb, Bambi finally let the anger drop and felt the weight of what came next. Not the internet, not the show, the real next. Lawyers, custody schedules, brand calls that don't get returned, friends who stop replying, a house that feels unfamiliar when you unlock the door. She inhaled like she was learning how to breathe again. The sky above the lot didn't care who trended. It just sat there, wide and indifferent, while the city recycled the same 3 words under every post.